How the hell do you write a poem? Hello, I'm Mary Kay Gowdy. I write speculative fiction, and I'm the poet behind the soon-to-be published chapbook Sensuality. Whether you're here because you've always wanted to write a poem but haven't known where to start, or because your English teacher put you up to this, I'm here to help you. I'll explain the basic techniques of writing poetry such as rhyme, form, poetic devices, and more. I know writing a poem can make you feel self-conscious, so before we get into any of the techniques, relax. Get rid of any expectations you have, whether of success or failure. You're not going to write a sonnet of the likes of Shakespeare, and that's okay. Don't beat yourself up for it. You're learning. Creating anything requires space from your insecurities and fears so that you can learn and improve. The first thing you want to consider when writing a poem is the idea. Common topics include love, loss, nature, and depression. But poetry isn't bound to those certain topics. Poetry can be about anything. Don't feel like you can't write about a certain topic because it isn't poetic enough. Write about what interests you. You can write about your life, your thoughts, your desires, your likes, your dislikes, maybe about an event that doesn't even include you, or you can make a story up. A popular spoken word poet, Sarah Kay, suggests making a list of 10 things you know to be true, and then picking the one that you feel like is least likely to have been written about by other people. I would also suggest making a list of 3 topics you care deeply about. What gets you excited? What makes your blood boil? What will you rant about to anyone that will listen? Remember, don't confine yourself to ideas that sound poetic. If it matters to you, it'll matter to someone else. The next few things we'll be discussing are poetic devices that you'll want to use. Number 1 is rhyme. 2 words rhyme when they end in the same sounds, like ring and sing. Poems will often end their lines in words that rhyme, but they don't have to.
There are several types of rhyme. The one that usually comes to mind when we think of rhyming is exact or perfect rhyme. That's when the final vowel and consonant sounds match perfectly. In the poem Annabel Lee by Edgar Allan Poe, it was many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea that a maiden there lived whom you may know by the name of Annabel Lee. And this maiden she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. See, Lee, and me all end in the same E sound and lack a final consonant sound, so both their vowel and consonant sounds match to create an exact rhyme. Then in The Tiger by William Blake, in what distant deeps or skies burnt the fire of thine eyes? On what wings dare he aspire? What the hand dare seize the fire? Skies and eyes are exact rhymes, and so are aspire and fire. Skies and eyes share the same vowel sound of I, and both end in S. As you can tell, exact rhymes are pleasing to the ear. Another type of rhyme is half or slant rhyme. Either the final vowel sounds match or the final consonant sounds do, but not both. Then, in Not Any Higher Stands the Grave by Emily Dickinson, this latest leisure equal lulls the beggar and his queen, propitiate this democrat a summer's afternoon. Queen and afternoon end in N, but don't have the same vowel sounds. My next example is a ladder of notes by yours truly. For the record, I only used one of my own poems because I couldn't find another one I was satisfied with as an example of the vowel sounds matching but not the final consonants. I'm not that conceited, I promise. The soft guitar drained the moment of all but the darkness that dragged me inward and then cupped the light so blue below of the city's ring. But and cupped share the same vowel sound of but end in different consonants. Then there is cross rhyme, which is when the end of the line rhymes with a word in the middle of the line or stanza before or after it. In The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe, while I nodded nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. Tapping at the end of the first line rhymes with rapping in the middle of the line after it. Then there is internal rhyme, which is the same thing but can also be a rhyme between the end of the line and a word in the middle of the same line. From Macbeth by Shakespeare, double, double, toil and trouble, fire, burn, and cauldron bubble. Double and trouble rhyme and occur in the same line.
There are many more types of rhyme, but they are far more obscure and harder to master. These are the basic types that every poet should have in their arsenal. The internet is also a helpful tool for finding rhymes.
Rhyme Zone is a website where you can insert a word and it will give you others that rhyme with it. Then B rhymes does the same thing but specializes more in half rhymes. Be careful though, because B rhymes will give you words that don't rhyme at all but sound good together.
Number 2, meter. Meter is the rhythm of a poem. Rhythm is created by the alternation between stressed and unstressed syllables.
Stressed syllables are marked with a slash, and unstressed syllables are marked with a U. Every word has a particular syllable that is stressed more than others. Escape, important, power.
To figure out the stress of a word, here are 2 tips. As you say the word, clap on one of the syllables. If it's the syllable that's stressed, it should feel and sound right to you, but if it's the wrong syllable, something should feel off and you should try on another syllable. For example, escape, escape. If that fails or you still want to make sure, you can look up the word with Google definitions. Just Google insert word DEF. Underneath the word will be its phonetic spelling.
There'll be a little dash somewhere. Whatever syllable it is placed right before is the syllable that is stressed. In English, verbs tend to be stressed on the last syllable and nouns on the first. You say there's a protest outside, but they protest against injustice. Then in my examples earlier, the noun power is accented on the first syllable and the verb escape on the last. This is more of a guideline than a rule. There are several words that are exceptions.
Determining the stress of a word comes with practice. I used to not be able to tell by myself at all, but I've gotten more accurate the longer I've written poetry. Now you can start building meters. Meters are broken into units called feet, or a foot, and a foot is made up of 2 to 3 syllables that follow a particular pattern of stressed and unstressed syllables.
There are 5 main types of feet: iamb, trochee, dactyl, anapest, and spondy. An iambic foot is unstressed, stressed. Trochee, stressed, unstressed. Dactyl, stressed, unstressed, unstressed. Anapest, unstressed, unstressed, stressed. Spondy, stressed, stressed. The meter of a poem is made up of 2 parts, the type of foot and the number of feet in a line. Monometer has 1 foot, dimeter 2, trimeter 3, tetrameter 4, pentameter 5, hexameter 6, and so on, but rarely anything longer than pentameter is used. To get the name of the meter, you add the name of the type of foot to the name for the number of feet in the line. Iambic pentameter is a common meter, especially in sonnets. In Sonnet 130 by Shakespeare, each line has 10 syllables divided into 5 feet, each with an unstressed and stressed syllable. My mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. Coral is far more red than her lips red. Another meter is anapestic tetrameter in The Destruction of Sennacherib by Lord Byron. Each line is divided into 4 feet of 3 syllables, unstressed, unstressed, stressed. The Assyrian came down like a wolf on the fold, and his cohorts were gleaming in purple and gold.
Number 3, alliteration, consonants, and assonance. I grouped these 3 poetic devices together because they're very similar. They all have to do with the repetition of sounds.
Alliteration is the repetition of consonant sounds at the beginnings of words. Often the words are right next to each other, but they don't have to be. In Rime of the Ancient Mariner by Samuel Taylor Coleridge, we were the first that ever burst into that silent sea. The alliteration of the W and S occur in adjacent words. However, in another line, for the sky and the sea and the sea and the sky, the S is again alliterated, but there are words separating sky and sea. Consonants is the repetition of consonant sounds. What makes it different than alliteration is that it doesn't have to occur at the beginnings of words. In 'Twas Later When the Summer Went by Emily Dickinson. 'Twas later when the summer went than when the cricket came, and yet we knew that gentle clock meant naught but going home. 'Twas sooner when the cricket went than when the winter came, yet that pathetic pendulum keeps esoteric time. M is repeated several times in the middle or ends of words: summer, came, home, pendulum, and time. Finally, there's assonance, which is the repetition of vowel sounds. In Sonnet 55 by Shakespeare, of princes shall outlive this powerful rhyme, but you shall shine more bright in these contents. Princes and outlive have similar short sounds. It. Then shine and bright also have similar I sounds. I. After Apple Picking by Robert Frost. Stem end and blossom end, and every fleck of russet showing clear. The S sound is repeated. Stem, end, every fleck, russet.
The repetition of sounds are beautiful for the ear to hear and the tongue to say, so these poetic devices help bring about language's beauty. Number 4, simile and metaphor. Both compare two unlike things. The only difference is that simile uses the words like or as, and metaphor does not.
In A Red, Red Rose by Robert Burns, "Oh, my love is like a red, red rose that's newly sprung in June. Oh, my love is like the melody that sweetly played in tune." He uses the word like to compare his love to a rose and a melody. But in Hope is the Thing with Feathers by Emily Dickinson, hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. She compares hope to a bird without using like or as. Instead, she describes it as having feathers and perching and singing the tune, which are all characteristics of birds.
I once defined poetry to a friend as words that make you see something in a new way. Similes and metaphors can reveal new connections between ideas that your audience may have never realized. However, they are easy to overuse. Keep in mind that they aren't the only things that make poetry poetry, and since their job is to reveal new connections between things, don't use one that doesn't say anything new. It's unnecessary and cliche. Number 5, repetition. Repetition can include the repeating of words, phrases, whole lines or stanzas, or the repetition of grammatical structures. This poetic device can likewise be overused. When a phrase, etc. is repeated, it should have a slight variation in meaning or bring something new to every situation it is in. Then the repetition of structures is called parallelism. It can apply to phrases or whole sentences. It can be used to tie ideas together or to contrast them. Whatever it does, the brain likes similarities like these, so using them in your poem will make it sound more pleasing.
An example of repetition occurs in Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night by Dylan Thomas. Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. And you, my father, there on the sad height, curse, bless me now with your fierce tears, I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Throughout the poem, the two lines are repeated but are not repeated together until the end, so we don't get the full message to the speaker's father before then. The repetition ties the poem together in a circular way, like a maze with the full message at the center. The ending is a revelation of something you already knew. Then, an example of parallelism occurs in How Do I Love Thee by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. I love thee freely as men strive for right. I love thee purely as they turn from praise. The parallel structure ties the ideas together so they build on one another to emphasize the speaker's point of what her love is like.
We've covered the main poetic devices like rhyme, meter, alliteration and company, simile and metaphor, and repetition. So now the last thing to discuss is form. There are two main camps regarding form: formal/traditional poetry and free verse. Formal poetry follows a preset form like a sonnet or a haiku that have rules for writing them, but formal poetry can also be as simple as having every line have the same meter. Free verse has no rules, no rhyme scheme, no meter you have to follow. You make the form up yourself. A lot of people suggest starting out as a beginner poet writing free verse, but I would suggest trying a simple form poem like a sonnet. If you think a sonnet is hard, try writing a villanelle. Free verse is very easy to do badly. It's extremely easy to fall into the trap of basically writing a prose piece with line breaks. Formal poetry already has poetic qualities like rhyme and meter built in, so no matter what, your poem will sound like one. Once you've written enough to develop your skills, you'll be better equipped to create that poetic quality outside the guidelines of form. That's everything you need to know to write a good poem. Remember, you're just starting out, so don't expect perfection. Just relax and enjoy the process of creation. Poetry is a fun way to express yourself if you let it be fun. Thanks for watching, and if you have any poems that you'd like for me to give feedback on, you can post them in the comments. I'm happy to help.